everybody, it's EK from EK Gorm Designs, and I am sneaking in today with an Elizabeth Craft Designs Winter Bear stamp set, stamped out scene that I'm going to copic color in the whole thing and create a night sky with these lovely little polar bears looking up into it. I started by coloring the polar bears because the key here was getting a white. This is not realistic. I need to go ahead and preface this. This is not a realistic coloring scene. I did not add the shadow that I probably should have added for a night scene to these polar bears because I still wanted them to be fluffy and white and lovely to look at. I did add a significant amount of warm gray to them so that they had depth and dimension and maybe just a hint of three-dimensional effect. But did not add the shadow one would add in a night scene, even if the moon was out and bright. But I added a lot of gray. And the reason I added gray was because I have a lot of snow that I've drawn into the scene. Yes, I did a lot of masking to get the different snow polar bears to pop up and the different trees behind people. And then I took my Faber-Castell pen and drew in the snowbanks. And I knew that the snowbanks in the far back I wanted to be the lightest, the ones at the up in the close to be the darkest. So the polar bears needed to have white tones that were in fact different than the snow because in my mind snow is a glistening blue. Polar bears, especially polar bears who've been playing a lot, are more of a dirty white, a gray white. So I went with the warm grays to color in the polar bears and then used the darker set of warm grays to color in their cute little noses. The trees were nothing special coloring, again, just trying to lay some color down that was dimensional. The snow, I used a B60, a B63, and a colorless blender. Like I said, those banks in the far back of the scene, I wanted to have the lightest effects. The snow bears in the middle of the scene, I wanted to have good shadows on medium-toned snow. And the snow bear in the front, who's in front of its own bank, that bank was going to be the darkest because it was the closest to the viewer in perspective. Ironically, I laid all this blue down and thought it was so dark. Like at this moment, I'm looking at this being like, oh, it's so dark. I need to push it back. I need to push it back. I need to push it back. Ironically, when I get the sky in, it's not nearly dark enough. And I need to make everything significantly darker to make the snow have the effect I want it to have. So you actually see me hit the snow twice with color. Once here in the beginning thinking, oh, it's so dark, I need to blend it out with the colorist blender. And then once again, once I get that sky in, to get the effect I needed. I've done the same thing with the trees. I've laid in some of that B60 into the trees. And again, I'm looking at it right here thinking, oh, this is so dark. Now you get to watch what I call ugly coloring. When I'm doing a night sky, I lay down kind of, especially when I'm doing a night sky like this where I want it to have an ombre effect, I lay down basically where I want the ombres to change and where the effects from it get darker to lighter. And I just put it in. I don't take the time to fill the whole night sky with one light color and then work my way back. I just kind of continuously layered down colors. I will let you know, it's what we call the ugly phase of the card, is this one where I'm trying to get all the color onto it without actually doing any of the blending to create the effects that I need. And yes, my B37 marker is dry and I should have filled it. I initially thought, oh, I am going to color around all of these snowflakes. That didn't happen. Didn't happen because it would have driven me crazy. That's not my kind of detail coloring that I enjoy. Now I'm taking the colors, the lighter colors, and kind of going back over what I've done before. Yes, I colored into the tree trunk. Yeah, it happens. But I'm laying down the blending elements to this. This ended up being just a tad bit streakier than I really like. But I have a quick way of covering up the streakiness to make it look, in my mind, more effective. And the blend between the bottom two, I thought, ended up being fine. Now, because I colored over the snowflakes, I took that B32 marker and just pushed the color out of all those circles. So, in fact, that the little snowflakes looked like they were kind of glistening in the night air in a part of the scene as opposed to popping out white. I'd initially thought, oh, okay, I'll pull out my white gel pen and I'll fill in those little bubbles with white. But I think using my marker and having and pushing the dark color out of it and having different levels of blue within my snowflakes was the right decision. So again, I'm going to go back in and try to get some of that streaky places. Here's where I realized that the trees were not nearly shadowed enough, and I actually went back in with that B63 and laid down significantly more color. Ironically, I think the polar bears had enough color, but the snowbanks didn't. I just thought it was too glistening white, and it definitely needed some darker layers thrown into it. So I, this time, really kind of laid down some of that B63 and really went to town with it. And it has a much nicer effect. Now it feels cooler. The snow feels... It almost feels like it could be in a night scene, whereas before it was definitely like white snow, blue sky, not anything you write home about. To fix... Oh, yeah. I go in with my colorist blender and really go to town to all my bad coloring mistakes, because there's plenty of them. To fix the patchiness of the night sky, I pulled out my gel pen and added snowflakes over everything. In my mind, when you add snowflakes, you not only add it to the sky, you add it on top of the noses and the clothing and even the faces and the trees. Like, you hit snow over everything, because if you don't, they're stars. If it's over the noses and the hair and the trees and the faces and the bodies, it's snowflakes. If it's just in the sky, they're stars. Yes, that's the distinguishing factor here. I kind of debated long and hard what color to color their stocking caps, and in the end, red was the right color. I only am just now realizing, I think I forgot to color the puffball of the red hat. I think there's zero coloring in that white puffball, and we're all just going to have to accept that, because sometimes everybody's not perfect. Finally, I go back in with that white gel pen one more time because I had to lay the red down still. Add some more extensive and heavier snowflakes, because sometimes snowflakes are bigger than others, and lay down more white gel dots on top of things like hats and stars. Finally, added a touch of color to the stars, keeping it real simple. And there you go. There's a colored scene using the Winter Bears card. Thanks for peeking in today and watching my coloring. If you want to subscribe and see more of what I do, hit the dragon. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Just keep crafting, everybody. Bye.